Hello, I'm Elaine Miller-Karras, and welcome to Resiliency Within. I also want to remind our listeners that we're also live on Facebook at Resiliency Within. And this month, we celebrate Black History Month. Its theme for 2022 is Black Health and Wellness, focused on the legacy of Black scholars and medical practitioners in Western medicine. The 2022 theme considers activities, rituals, and initiatives that Black communities have done to be well. And this month, I will interview leaders who are all community resiliency model teachers, bringing wellness skills to their communities. And my guest today, I'm so honored to have him here, is Reggie McNeil, founder and executive director of Transforming Youth Movement. And our show today is called Keeping Faith, Trauma, Resiliency, and Wellness among Black Youth in America. And I want to tell you a little bit more about Reggie. He's a community leader with a strong background in corporate management. Through hard work, opportunity, and mentors in his own life, Reggie has overcome challenges and envisioned an organization to help other young people do the same. He began giving back quite a few years ago now by acting as a community organizer through ministry, and then later by mentoring in Atlanta's public housing communities, helping establish financial mobility and home ownership. And after returning to North Carolina, he established Transforming Youth Movement. I'm going to say it again. He's going to give us the website later, Transforming Youth Movement, believing that by focusing on the themes of mentoring, educational enhancement, career preparedness, cultural and social awareness, civic engagement, and financial literacy, he could help transform the lives of young people. Reggie will discuss how Black youth in America are confronted by trauma disproportionately affecting their communities. And as we remember the past, engage the present, and envision the future, the protective factors within youth, their families, and communities can be strengthened through wellness skills. Despite inadequate access to mental health resources, Black youth can draw on a rich legacy of faith-based cultural resiliency to help them navigate life's challenges. So these are really the words of Reggie, the last few statements I've made. I want to say one more thing about him too. He once said to me, I want to get rid of the words at-risk youth and really start using more at opportunity youth. And I thought how important that semantic shift was. So I really want to thank you for that, Reggie, because I think if we start looking at children as a time of opportunity, maybe they wouldn't be, so to speak, have those risks that challenge their lives that may derail them. So as we start today, I'm just going to ask you what's on your mind as you've heard this introduction about you and you're here with me today on Voice America.
What's on my mind? Well, I can tell you the first thing on my mind is that I'm shocked and surprised to be on Voice America. I was grateful and humbled that you would give me such an opportunity to come on and share our organization, some life history, some hopes and some desires that I have. And oh, by the way, am I really grounded enough to get through this 1 hour, this presentation?
I think you are already. That's my hunch.
We're going to find out here shortly. Yeah.
So, Reggie, I'm going to ask you a question because you and I have spoken before in the past. How has your lived experience inspired your work with youth? Like, what happened to your life that you decided, I'm going to really try to do something for the youth of my community?
Yeah, and so oddly enough, and Elaine, in so much honesty in our conversations over the time that we talked, and so for what a lot of people didn't realize is that for the better part of 15 years, I lived under some of the stigmas that the youth face that we deal with today. I had a life where I was adopted at 2 years old. Fortunate to stay in home in terms of with family members, but adopted nonetheless, and had to learn that after 2 years old that I was adopted. I think that was the first deal. I had the own personal challenges of dealing with what that looked like after realizing that, because a lot of times people don't realize how that may seem basic, but coming to realize it for me was about 4th or 5th grade. You've been believing one thing over another, and all of a sudden the covers pull back. There's a realization that, oh, by the way, you're a part of something that you were not aware of. And so over time, those that reality, no matter how much love and care was there, pushed me into a position that at some point, after getting reconnected and quote unquote adopted by my mother, and moving to what was deemed as the city. I've traveled enough now to know that I love my hometown. We're probably not a big city, but long version short, those things being equal, I ended up going down a path, much like some of the young people that we deal with today. I got myself in many adverse situations, needed guidance and mentors that just weren't readily available for me at that time in my life. Fortunately, April 18th, 97, I had a life-changing, altering moment that positioned how I thought about not only the world around me, but personally myself.
So what happened? And you remember that date so clearly. So what happened in 1997 that changed that?
1997. Yeah, 1997. I was driving down a street called Butterfield, heading to cross over Carver School Road. And I came to a stop sign rather. And for the first time, seemingly in years, I was about 25 years old. I had gotten myself in such a turmoil to my focus was so streamlined. I don't know that I was paying attention to the world around me. In so much of a basic way for realization, I happened to look up and notice the colors in the sky. I was blown away at 20-some years old. I was saying, man, there's red and blue and white and all these different colors. And as I was taking this in, there was this moment where the sun appeared to be bigger than the norm. At some point, that sun became feeling radiant. I felt it piercing on myself. And then ultimately, that sunlight seemed to overtake my car. And it was from that moment on a Friday night, April 18th, 1997, that my mom invited me to a church. I had not been to church since I was 12. I was like, man, the moment she told me I could be out of there, I was out of there. I mean, when I didn't have to go. As much as I loved it, trust me, that would be a later story. But the long version short, revisited with her on that night. A small church, the Uncompromising Word was the name of it. But in this church happened to be a minister who spoke to me. And I felt it was personal and it made me feel that I could change. And so from there, it was 1 year later that I set out on my journey to Atlanta, Georgia in 98 for change.
Wow. So, I mean, it sounds like that experience at the stoplight was a spiritual experience that really was. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. But
I would wholeheartedly. Yeah, I would. It is the hallmark of now where faith for me is the cornerstone of who I am in my life. And I'm actually grateful to have an opportunity, even in this platform, to share it, because too often, whether it's been in the private sector, the nonprofit, you have to be careful. You say this, you don't say that, and these things are biases and all the things that have really stigmatized those of us who believe that we feel isolated.
Well, and that's really kind of segues into my next question for you. What are some of the things that you do to keep up personal faith and hope? Because I know you hear some pretty hard stories that children have lived through and young people have lived through, so similar to what you would live through, and probably some things, even greater challenges. So how do you keep the faith and hope?
Yeah, so about 4 years ago, surprisingly, I went out to the garage, and first thing, so let me go backwards a little bit further. So about 4 years ago, I had the notion to quote the Lord's Prayer every day, the Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, etc., all the way through. And so that became a morning ritual for me, in that let me just say this. I use the restroom in case somebody's asking. I go and play around in the mirror. I make my coffee. I do a lot of things a lot of times before that. But right when my mind focuses on, I'm here today, I'm going to say the Lord's Prayer. So I do that every single day. And then somehow over the course of some time, music was incorporated, which was my first love, as I shared.
Well, I understand that you also can sing, and you do some mean impressions as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I know I shared the Martin King one with you. And to your point, yeah, no, the first time I got a microphone, I was 4 years old. I was in a small church, Mount Abel Pentecostal Holiness Church. And boy, everything I thought about life, I could cut loose with that microphone in my hand. And I shared in ways through song that I hope to, one day and still inspire others with, because about 4 years ago, incorporating music into a daily devotion, in addition to mindfulness, meditation, and then ultimately you brought CRIM skills.
The community
So
resiliency model
the
skills. Yes. So
community,
you've got quite a little
yeah,
smorgasbord there.
yeah. I assure you, and whoever the listening audience is, I do not leave my garage no day before I go through a sequence of those experiences. The book, I had read enough. I'd studied so much religion across 5,000 years, into Egyptology, into Catholicism, Masonry, 5%er, but came to find faith and hope in Christianity, and that's been the hallmark of my life. But I say that to say, incorporating all these things, and then, coming to a place of understanding how important it is for you to self-care, in the words of CRIM. I didn't realize how much that was until, of course, you got a language. Thank you for sensory languages, et cetera. But once getting a language, I realized the importance of these things. And so from there, if I have to be at an appointment at 6 a.m., I'm up at 4:30 a.m. If I have to be at the appointment at 9, man, I might get up at 7:30, but I'm going to make sure that I don't leave that garage before spending 1 hour within the concepts of everything I shared: a Lord's Prayer, a daily devotion, some mindfulness, some meditation, and I'm gonna make sure I recite the wellness skills.
The community resiliency model. Wow, that's
Right.
that's a lovely practice. So I'm gonna thank you for sharing that. I think I could be sometimes better at my daily practices, but I've also found saying the Lord's Prayer to be very helpful as well.
Yeah.
I actually had someone talk to me one time. I was actually in Atlanta, and I was doing a CRIM teacher training, and there was a chaplain there that was working in the juvenile justice system. And he came to me after learning the community resiliency model skills because of the sensory base of it. He said, I've been saying the Lord's Prayer every morning my life since I was a boy, but I had an experience, he said, this morning that I'd never had before, in that I sensed what it was
Right.
like as I said the
Wow.
prayer. And he
Wow.
said that actually even made it that much more powerful.
So,
So I don't know if you've done that as well,
yeah.
Reggie.
No. Yeah. So for the future, and maybe one day we'll get, maybe today, I don't know, but so since becoming more aware and more keenly focused on the world around me, and again, like I say, my faith has has the hallmark bearing on the cornerstone of my heart. But no, yeah, the community resiliency model wellness skills and developing them brought me into a more I feel synchronized now over the last, say, 2 years for sure. But like I said, I started those practices 4 years ago. Over the last 2 years, Elaine, and I know that there are many out there that will testify. I hope they will share and stand in agreement with me.
I
But
think there might be some.
yeah, but the birds now get closer to me than ever before.
Mm.
I've had a bird literally come in my garage and just float in front of me while I was either reading a devotion or doing some meditation. The squirrels, the rabbits are more keenly like in focus for me. I can feel the wind more than I've ever felt it before, in a different way. The world around me is a really good thing, and the negative can be that as I developed all of these senses, you get more keen sense of the people around you too, which you have to be careful.
Well,
Not
it's
to
true.
read
It's like
someone too fast.
there's a deepened sense of self and your connectedness to the world, right? And then also, when you start being aware on this kind of sensory level, you can also see when people are not kind of what we call in their zone of well-being.
Correct.
And then that can also be unsettling for us, especially as we become
Correct.
more inner aware. Well, and
That
I
is
guess that's going to lead me to, one of the things, we really want to hear today, what led you to found the Transformation Youth Movement?
So in the interest of faith, I think it's incredible that we fell in that space. But to your point, I'd like to just on the end of what you shared, it is such a profound statement to the fact that the more you become aware of yourself and the things around you, it can be a little nerving at first.
Yes.
You know, like, wow, the world might be a little scary place, you know. But no, I can appreciate you saying that, because as I've grown again over the last 4 years, I've become more aware of that, and so it was good to hear that. But I wish I could take credit for this organization in terms of the mentality. But it was in 2000 that I, in fact, had a dream, and that I woke up in this dream. And I, for the first time, asked myself, I can still remember it almost to like yesterday, but I was questioning myself in this dream. This is a 2 or 3 in the morning type dream. I'm literally in I questioned, am I in a daydream or a night dream in this moment? And even the fact that I can remember that, I was like, how am I thinking about a day versus a night dream? And the questioning felt in my heart, what's the difference? And so in that space, Elaine, I came to some feeling like I could bring the belief of the dream that I was having into the real world. And from there, I needed to write, I needed to scribe it down. So I can tell you of a truth. I cannot recall even to this day whether I was awake or not. But I know I could visually see all the things that were happening in the space with me. I was, in fact, writing some of the basic of details. Of course, I've learned a lot now since that it took a lot more than even what I scribed. But God had a way of bringing the resources to me over the years, after 10 years of running around telling people, hey, man, I've got this dream. And I'm sharing this dream. And the long version short of it all, it had the details of bringing awareness to changing meant helping youth not be so conformed to the things of the world, but having a true newness of mind. And what that meant for me and them was to put possibilities in front of them. I had felt like, I guess, the sense of longing of hope was diminishing in the world, in particular around youth, because I started getting in that space. I seen the perils of community. I both grew up in many of them, hung out in many of them. And then now I was seeing it with some light in my eyes, given some recent salvation. It was just kind of like caught in the midst of a real moment where this is a dream happening at night or in the morning, with real details, with real specifics, that gave me hope that if in fact I did do those things, I could really create some hope and opportunities for young people.
Oh my goodness, Reggie, you had never told me about the dream before.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm going to share something that I have never shared on the air before. So back in, oh my gosh, I think it's probably 28 years ago, about that, I had the same experience. I had a dream where I didn't know whether I was awake or whether I was asleep, but the dream was about the sea of suffering.
Oh,
And
wow.
I almost, like, when I had my eyes open, almost could see the sea, right? It's like, it was very strange. I was teaching, like family medicine at a very academic center. I go, this is a little bit strange what I'm experiencing.
But you're sure you're seeing it. What's strange is you didn't share it, because who you're going to tell. That's the reality.
That's exactly right. I thought people might think I'm a little bit crazy if I tell the story, right? But it was about the sea of suffering, and I wasn't afraid of the sea of suffering.
Right.
I was the sea was me. There was a peacefulness of being in the sea of suffering. So I went on a journey asking many people about what they thought it meant. I went to my minister, and someone actually took me to a very dear Tibetan monk. And actually what he said to me stood very well in what I was saying. He said, well, it's very important. He goes, we pay attention to dreams in my practice. He said, but it's important not to get too excited by them, but to just be aware of them, notice them, and that a path will come that you will know what to take. And so then many years later, I was invited to go to Thailand after the tsunami, talk about the sea of suffering.
Wow.
And that's where I had some of the ideas that sparked the community resiliency model.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
when you think about that, so our listeners might be going,
So
well, this
cool.
is interesting. Reggie and Elaine are talking about
No,
grief,
that is
but
really
thank
cool.
you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, honestly, when you talk about the space of being in that unsure am I up or not. I mean, to your point, I literally could see like thousands upon thousands of kids coming up over a hill. The only thing that I've ever seen that looked like that in this real world for me was the I, Robot movie with Will Smith and the robot seeing the other robots on the hill.
I know that
I was
scene.
a castaway robot,
But
so
I think that, there's so many mysteries of the world and we don't know necessarily. I mean, we can sit here and go, well, what does that mean? Where did it come from? Some of us
right.
might think it's God. Sometimes other people
Yeah.
might say, well, it's the mystery of the mind. But whatever your belief structure is, that I do think that there are that our brains, our minds are amazing. And when we get these
Right.
kinds of dreams, that
Right.
if we need to pay attention to them like you did, because
I
if you
agree.
hadn't paid attention to that dream, we might not be having this conversation right now
I'm
about,
certain it would not.
yes. And then if I had maybe followed that also mine in terms of going to
Yeah.
Thailand, I'd never hardly
Yeah.
traveled internationally.
Yeah.
That opened up a whole world that I think that has led to our conversation, certainly.
Really cool. Really
So
cool.
can you tell me a little bit about your organization's mission? What is the mission of the organization?
So our mission is that we exist to inspire positive social change and community transformation with an emphasis on through youth. I think far too often as adults, I've come to realize that we can become disconnected. We have our own perspectives. We've got a worldview. We're in desperate need of a perspective shift, if you will, to remind ourselves of what it was like when we were a young person. And so for me, it's critically important that we have that at the core of what we do, that we have that assurance that if we meet young people where they are, we're going to have more of an opportunity to help them. Who wants someone to come into your life and you're in chaos? And let me go backwards. There was the notion back in the day to bring people to health and wellness when we used to go in and do sort of street evangelistic ministry. If someone said they're hungry, to really bring change, we needed to bring some food, right? And so as you met the need for hunger, then we were able to solve those problems, and ultimately led to some, careers being given. Men and women got life-altering changes in home ownership. Some upward mobility was established over the years. But to your point, these I think is critical to remind ourselves to meet young people in particular. Well, let me just say this: you meet me, you might want to meet me where I'm at too,
Yes.
right? I think I'm the oldest young person that you might know in the reality world, but that's important to be meeting young people who and where they are.
Well, and especially I think if we've seen children that have been oppressed and children who've suffered, that if we
That's right.
don't meet them where they are, then it would be harder to reach them, I would think. Has that been your
No, absolutely.
experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there becomes the biases, the stigmas that exist, the realities of, and especially when we're not a trauma-informed community, you can't, the gestures can be different. All of the things that I have come to realize, is detrimental to restoring a kid is being able to again meet them where they are. And so too often, yeah, to your point, I see people, maybe teaching at the symptom, speaking at the symptoms, having some awareness and informed opinion, but don't have the true, empowerment of it all. Because again, if you're asking me, can I help you get a black pen? And if I bring you a blue pen,
it's not going to help me to have a blue pen if I need a black pen, right?
It'll be what you want. Right?
Yeah. So this aspect of listening has become a huge part of what's embedded in your organization.
Right. So we have what's known as the 4 L's. Listening is the first of them. Foremost, you have to be able to listen. If you do, I think you have an opportunity to learn something of someone. When you learn from somebody, you then might love them for who they are. That then ultimately gives you the ability to lead them.
So listen, can you say that? Listen, learn, love, and lead. I love that.
Now here's the deal. So I make this L between listening and learning.
I see. So Reggie's putting his two hands together
Yeah.
that
Oh, that's right. I
are the
forgot.
shape of an
Right.
L,
That's right.
two
So the
L's.
first two, the first two are L's together. You flip those together, you get an H. So between listening and learning, it depends on what you hear. So you have to listen, learn, love, and lead, and you can do that from the front, the middle, or the back of the bus. I always encourage people to trust the driver, or at least have some trust in the driver on the bus. But other than that, it depends on what you hear.
Well, I think when you talk about listening and learning too, we did a show a little bit about Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama, and they talked about how important, in terms of when you listen and learn from someone else, then you can also see our common humanity. So
Right.
that brings us together as people, not separating us.
That's right.
And if we can't, I love that, listen and learn, because it really is about love and
Absolutely.
loving ourselves, and then that brings that
Absolutely.
joy and love to other people, in my experience.
Absolutely. I know I would wholeheartedly agree. Without that, the creation and the founder, at least by most, so loved the world that was given. And so in saying all those things at the core, I think it is a matter of love, and it's important to have that in your heart. And I don't think you should really interact with people if you don't have love in your heart.
Well, and I think from the love, you said leadership. And so I imagine
Right.
many of the youth, and when we come back from our break, I really want to hear more about some stories of your youth. But I imagine, just like maybe you would not have imagined yourself as a leader when you were a teenager. Did you imagine
Right.
yourself as a leader?
I had I planned on being, Michael Jackson or James Brown. I was going in the genre of music. I didn't wasn't really thinking
about being a leader, but you became a businessman, and now you run a
Yeah.
nonprofit. So
Right.
it's like we sometimes don't know where we are going to
Right.
be led in
I'm
order to
grateful.
lead. And
Right.
that stop sign on that April 18th,
Right.
1997,
That's
really
right.
was that segue that led you to that minister who became your mentor.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, and so I guess the other thing too is that you never know. It's literally where the road's going to lead.
That's
And
right.
yours,
I agree.
and yours, it was the stop sign. You were actually on the road. Oh gosh, Reggie, that's the best story. So we're going to be back in just a few minutes, and we're going to hear more from my wonderful guest, Reggie McNeil, he's going to tell we're going to do a deeper dive into the organization, and he's going to share with us some stories about the youth he's working with, and really specifically some of the things that he does that are helping reach those 4 L's, because we want to know how you do it. I
Absolutely.
mean, we can think about how you listen, but then
That's right.
how do those other things come to be? So he's going to illuminate us about his journey and the wonderful people that work with him and how they serve the youthful community in North Carolina. Tell them what city you're in.
We're in currently Concord, North Carolina is our base.
Concord, North Carolina.
Yes, ma'am. We also have Rowan County, Mecklenburg County, and Union County. So
okay, so you've got quite a few counties in there. Tri-counties. Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
Tri-counties. All right. This is Elaine Miller-Karras, and we will be back in just a few minutes, and we will continue our conversation. Welcome back. I'm here with Reggie McNeil, and he's talking about his organization. And he is going to share more about it. And can you tell us, because I think say the name of the organization again and your website, because I really want to make sure that people hear this more than once.
Thank you so much. Transforming Youth Movement, Inc. And our website is www.tyminc.org.
Oh, that's pretty easy. tyminc.org. Okay. Boom. And so that's how you can get in touch with Reggie. That's how you can learn more about the wonderful programming they're doing for youth. So let's hear more about that. So Reggie, can you share with us, maybe a story about one of the youth? I mean, I know that you are sharing wellness skills with them, like the community resiliency model. I imagine others as well. So let us know a little bit about how the programs you've crafted for youth are working.
So fortunately for me, as I shared, I had this dream in 2000 till 2010 before reconnecting with a young lady, Miss Shannon Chambers, in this space, who was able to help me sort of craft in this space what that could and need to look like for us to bring the programming that we've brought now to this area. And it takes a lot more incredible people that we've had since then to help us build. But from there and having all these people, we've now created what we hope to become sort of like a continuum of care deal, right? So our first program is mentoring. It's a year-long program. It's got, it's 6 focus areas of mentoring, educational enhancement, career preparedness, cultural and social awareness, civic engagement, and financial literacy, as you talked about earlier. It gives us an opportunity to meet youth where they are. We do 1 to 4, small group match, and then we get them out in space. Now, sometimes you learn that a kid doesn't know how to shop at a grocery store. You'll be surprised.
Oh my gosh.
On a kid wanting a job that don't know that they got to have an ID, or they have to have their social security number, so the whole nine. So I can go across all of that, but that's a lot of the.
But that's some of the very basic things that you would hope that they would have somehow gotten maybe from their family or from school. But we might have lots of, let's say, I guess maybe math classes, but are we really teaching children how they can actually maneuver in the world, like even financial literacy? How do they go to a bank to open up a bank account? Things like that. Is that what you're teaching them?
So absolutely. So the mentoring program is just that piece. Is more or less connection, bringing kids to open up and communicate, somehow effectively. I like to say this is one thing to communicate, but I like effective communication. But that's a mentoring program, a year-long deal. But from there, we've got a vocational program that's a 25-week deal. Within the first 12 weeks, we are, in fact, teaching them all those things, career readiness, including conflict resolution, some soft skills, all things that, again, going to help you get on that job and have longevity. Fortunately, coming from all of the things we talked about, some of the storied past, but somehow I managed to, after the first mentor, become a regional trainer and general manager for 2 global companies, taking me to 26 states around the country. But seeing the things that I know was needed in that area, I then, with that job program, kind of help, get the folk ready for careers. But in addition to that, we have a team court program where our kids get to manage the court. They're the bailiff, they're the jury of peers, they're the defense and attorneys and the DA. So again, kids get a chance to be in space, going through a real life situation, but not be so overwhelmed by a real big adult overwhelming situation. But then also get restorative measures that bring them back, because we've got holistic approaches to everything we do. And so we're able to provide that in a space of care for those youth. Then from there, we are able to place kids. We've got a wonderful partnership with Pinnacle. They are providing foster care, therapeutic foster care placement for us. And then, lastly, we've got a community service and restitution model, which our organization got a chance to work with a lot of great people, including judges from the 26th district that helped us, or they sort of created an MCYC, or Mecklenburg Youth Coalition, that allowed for us to get in space and introduce, based on our learning of their desires to have pro-social and interest-based initiatives be a part of it.
So, but as you're talking, I'm seeing you had to make a lot of partnerships and collaborations to make all these things happen. I mean, what you had to do with Pinnacle, so that means the kids could have more resources, and even brokering the judicial system. My husband's a judge, so I know that it's not the easiest system at all times to maneuver. So how did you get them interested in what you were doing? I think, what was the spark that they said, okay, Reggie, we're in?
Right. So the real spark is that there are a lot more intelligent people working around me today than me. And so they have a lot more.
It takes a village, right? It takes a village. Yes.
To raise me, you can believe that, right? But no, but in honesty, I had a chance to hear a speech one night by a local judge, Lutrash, who gave a pitch for pro-social and interest-based initiatives that struck a nerve with me. I had a dream similar to the one he was sharing. And because I was who I was, I had to do community service myself, prompted me to kind of listen with intent. And it drew us into a conversation, ultimately me and the leaders of our organization. And from there, we were invited again to be a part of the Mecklenburg County Youth Coalition. within that coalition and having the background that I had and the pedigree, if you will, from life experiences, our program director had a similar vision and dream and had been writing things out to how disproportionately youth had been placed when they're disenfranchised through a community service program. And she had thought, hey, yeah, we can, this is something that it just clicked. And so from that relationship, from there, that having judges like, the likes of, Judge Lutrage, Judge Finkley Alvarez, and Judge Blake, that gets, for what you're trying to create with pro-social and interest-based initiatives, gives you support.
So how do the kids get to you? Does Child Protective Services say we have a kid that's, in the system and is going to be going into foster care, or is it the juvenile justice system that refers kids to you, or is it all of the above?
Yeah, no, it can be from some of the above, but 97% of our youth are in fact juvenile justice referred.
They are.
They're coming either through court, they're coming through SROs, school resource officers, which we try and promote more so because it hinders them from having to enter into the juvenile justice system. But in addition to that, we get referrals from local law enforcement agencies, police and sheriffs. To your point, we can take some referrals from parents. We can take some referrals from clergy. So we've got a diverse way of being able to receive referrals. And generally, we serve about 300 youth a year.
So, as you're working with the youth, what is the current state of the mental health of these young people? I mean, you mentioned the word trauma informed. Have most of them had serious traumas in their life? Can you share a little bit about just what's happened to these kids to have them be in the juvenile justice system if 97% of your referrals are from that system?
Yeah. So I mean, we could go on with a lot of things that's happened with that. Beforehand, I'd like to kind of just in the interest of Black History Month, read a quote that I've read, recently from Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, "Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscious stupidity." I believe that there is, in fact, sincere ignorance within our community. And honestly, people don't and are not aware of the things that are happening. And oh, by the way, then there is the conscious stupidity that then keeps youth and us, people from having opportunities to really adjust and succeed. And so what happens for me is a lot of these youth find themselves in desperate situations because of their lived conditions. You can't, push folk into one space, hinder them from resources, whether economically, educationally, civically, and or, in any of these ways, and think that, by the way, they're going to kind of pull themselves up from the bootstraps. And so because I think we've created these pockets of society in particular, when we deal with, Black and brown minority, and the reason why I put an emphasis on that is because of the youth that we served last year, we had 97% of our youth come in as Black and brown men, young boys. And our population is diverse. Our referrals come from those sources, so there's no way we can kind of alter those numbers. But it's kind of one of those deals of, again, serving Caucasian, Hispanic, Asian, Indians. We serve kids from all walks of life. But then to see those staggering numbers come in should make us question more. And so, I look at all
because we're really the adults. The systems are letting these kids down, right?
In my opinion, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's been the mission when you talk about resources and trying to get them, getting yourself connected into the right people with the right places. I mean, we've been fortunate now to try and make sure these kids get the right resources. I shared that coalition, but we sit on the juvenile justice behavioral health continuum. We work within system of care, workforce development, NC Care 360. I mean, we really look to the local colleges. We work with Davidson. We work with UNC Charlotte, Wingate, Livingstone, if I didn't say. I mean, so whatever it takes to get resources to the youth.
So what's happening with the kids? I mean, I don't know if you have the studies of your organization. Are the kids is there a good solid percentage of your kids, getting into school, going to college, changing the course of their life as a result of the services that you're providing?
So the fortunate thing for me is that over time you get growth. And having worked for two global companies, Michelin and Brambles, there was an awareness of things you need to get to put together to kind of track. But we do have a system, the NCLIs, that track measurable outcomes for youth in terms of their successful completion of our programs. But there's nothing right now that connects youth to what happens to them beyond those orders. Our organization this year will, in fact, have a dashboard that we will be able to track those outcomes and measure them more directly and with more specificness to where they get connected to. And so that's because of growth. I will tell you, though, that I have seen youth graduate high school and go on to their own careers in the workforce. I have just to my right there a picture of my first classes where those young men were 13 and 14. They're now 20 and 21. They got babies, and they're calling because of the impact of what I believe mentorship can add to any young person. But to be more specific to your question, the things we track internally help us show that youth, in fact, have gotten connected to the services in the plans that we laid out in a request for proposal through a program agreement process. But the long version short, we've been able to demonstrate we've connected to them. We've got a better than 82% completion rate. I think we've served a little over 1,690 something youth to date, with a little over 1,378, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around their success rate. I know it ended up being we're around about 82 to 83%.
That's amazing.
I feel so. It's funny you say that, and I'm grateful to hear that. I know that by most measurable objectives, that puts us in a good space. But for me, and knowing that the one that you lose or don't get has a lesser opportunity, it means that you're 17% more opportunity. And so, as you know,
Reggie, I can't imagine that if you have a child that's struggling, that you wouldn't try to find him out.
That's right. That's right.
I can
that's
just
right.
see
That's right.
you'll knock on their door. Where is he?
Well, yes. and I wish it was just Reggie. I mean, so when I say I wish, I'm grateful that it's not just Reggie. So we've grown 5.5 years now has allowed for us to have 12 full-time staff, maybe 13, another 10 part-time staff that helps us meet these needs over. And it was the same thing said in corporate America, I say in this nonprofit world. If we've got the right people, we put the right processes in place with the right protocols, you can then get the best results, hopefully leading to best practices. And so all those things are, in fact, helping us, really formulate a more straight path towards the future for how we can, in fact, create that continuum of care that I said in a real system of care.
Well, and I think that what I'm really hearing too from our listeners who may be listening from other parts of the country or the world is that you really worked to develop systems, new systems of collaboration. And so then if the kids didn't get what they needed for whatever reason, you were trying to provide for them now, whether it's how to go to the grocery store, how to open a bank account, or having basic vocational skills so they could get a job. These are the basics ingredients of success. And also hoping that, if a kid doesn't have anything, they don't know how to make money, what are they going to do? They're going to, the gangs and things are going to be more attractive to them because they don't have those skills to make a difference for themselves.
So is that in addition to the real stats that impact, again, these youth? When I talk about the numbers being what they are, there's far too much out here that speaks to the reality of African-American teens being faced with mental health crises, but less likely than our counterparts to get that kind of treatment for mental health. We're more criminalized, if you will. There's so much study that shows the disparities in the numbers when you look at where we are by, all the comparisons of all the other, nationality groups. And then that has a long lasting effect, not only on those youth, it impacts them as adults, creating a worse society overall. But the numbers speak for themselves. I am not always data driven, but certainly I've come to an acute need for awareness of them. But no, I think those despairing, odds gives those young people, I mean, us as, young Black, boys and men, a less likely chance to have success. And far too often, I mean, puts us in a chance that our lives are at risk. And so I think it's really important when we talk about the things we're doing. So we created a mentoring program, a vocational program, a community service program, a teen court program. We work with Pinnacle for foster care placement. But this year, we're going to be adding wellness skills, and that's going to be a 12-week course. We're going to work with kids to help them, in fact, get measurable outcomes, including realizing their resiliency, understanding the importance of those skills. We're going to help them learn biology. You got to know something. You got to know what the parasitic
well, so that kind of
Yeah.
brings me to, we've heard from other folks about the community resiliency model that it's a, set of wellness skills, and it does have, some research behind now that it reduces, symptoms of trauma, depression, anxiety, but it's also very accessible because it's really, as you know, brought to people as wellness skills. And
Right.
and some folks who are, and children, certainly young people who don't want to go to a therapist, they may have an entryway at least to get some wellness skills. So would you tell us a little bit more about what your thoughts are about that? Because of course we know that, we have if there's a mental health system, some kids are going to need that, but some kids are never going to get there. So give us your thoughts about that, Reggie.
So yeah, I think there are a lot of thoughts that I have about that, and again, the hope would be that ultimately everybody within our society becomes more trauma informed, right? And then from there, I mean, the reality becomes then how then can we meet these young people, where they are, and to your point, I feel like there is a huge divide in the mentality, there, and so what I also come to realize is that, it's about how we, in fact, include those skills. I think it's the first thing you'd have to do is realize that you, in fact, have a language that we can relate with, right?
Yes.
So I think it's like, jive talk in the, when we're young, or, we can freelance talk in different ways. I used to travel the country. When I say I travel the country, like I said, 26 states. But the one thing I learned that you can be in the country and English don't sound like English.
No. You might be able to understand each other.
That's
or
right.
if you go to other countries. I was in Ireland once and I couldn't understand what they were speaking, and they were speaking English with such a
unbelievable. I can imagine.
Dialect.
No, absolutely. And so for me, is first of all, given hope in the fact that there is a language, but more importantly, some skills that you can learn that will help you where you are. I think that's the importance of the wellness skills and the way that I think we're impacting them, because the realization is that the youth that we're dealing with in this population coined at risk, I think, rather than an opportunity, as we like to call them, they find themselves the reality of being in front of the law enforcement agency on the wrong side. They find themselves in the homelessness more so often than their counters. And so meeting them where they are, talking to them and bringing wellness skills in sort of a hip way. We're going to be introducing music. We're going to be taking them on trips. So they're going to be able to broaden their horizon. They're going to build those resources in addition to, and I think that that's going to help the youth we serve and hopefully help our communities even more.
So Reggie, I knew that we were going to have no problems talking to each other for 1 hour.
You called it.
And I mean, I called it, didn't I? So I'm just wondering, and you have so much wisdom, and as people are out there listening to you, there's organizations thinking, well, maybe we can do in our community. I mean, I think reaching out to Black and Brown youth is so important for all the reasons that you're talking about, and just even the basics that you're talking about is so important to bring that forward. If they didn't get them, how do we get them to them so that we can wipe out the juvenile justice system and have these kids have the skills they need to empower them? So what's your last words of wisdom for us today?
Well, with mass, media and kids being able to get information in ways that we've never been able to get them before. You can Google it or research it and get it within a matter of where you're the most informed, and you can be 5 years old. The words of wisdom would be that, I encourage us to, keep meeting the needs of our young people who are growing mentally in that space faster than at what we might would perceive ourselves. But in the face of an unfortunate reality that they can't get to those things that they desire, we have to create those opportunities. And so that's why we see them as at opportunity youth. I hope we all kind of view them in that way going forward. And so I hope that we collectively come together to create those opportunities to keep on, making a difference, a positive, hopefully, difference in the world around us.
Thank you so much, Reggie. I hope for the same things. And again, I want to make sure that our listeners know how to get in touch with you. So please say your website again.
www.tyminc.org. Yeah, www.tyminc.org.
So if anyone's out there who wants to start a similar organization or find out how he made all these amazing partnerships to help the youth of his community, I know Reggie is very open. I've contacted him a number of times and he shared his wisdom with me, thank goodness. So Reggie, again, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. I think we need to have you come back again because we need to hear about part 2. The other thing I want to let people know that we're going to be posting on my what is it? I think we're going to be posting it on Resiliency Within, a little 3-minute video that you have about your program. So I want to let people know that's going to happen. And I guess it's
a 51-second intro to our community resiliency model.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. So, and that's going to be on my YouTube channel as well, Resiliency Within. And I just want to end that, and may we all be reminded that National Black History Month serves as a celebration and a powerful reminder that Black history is American history. Black culture is American culture, and Black stories, as Reggie's sharing with us, are essential to the ongoing story of America and how we're working together to build resiliency and well-being. And as Resiliency Within shines a light on Black history today, believing this is important to understanding ourselves and growing stronger and recognizing this common humanity, Reggie, that you so beautifully talk about. And I want to end with the words today of Desmond Tutu, who, died in the end of December. What a wonderful, wonderful Christian minister he was. He said, my humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together. And so with that, Reggie, I'm so glad I'm human with you and that we cross paths in our world.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elaine.